What's going on, y'all? How's everybody been doing? How's everybody been doing? Hopefully, you guys all enjoyed Valentine's Day yesterday. Didn't really do much, but about 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet Central Dispatch. I just so happened to be laying down in Columbia. I had started in Nashville, went from Nashville to Atlanta to Columbia, and I always said it'd be nice to kind of put a face to some of these voices that I speak with every night and just kind of get a better understanding on how they operate, how they come up with some of the decisions that they make. Because some of the things they do, I kind of question it, in my mind, but nonetheless, I go with the flow for the most part. And since I'm going to speak on the company, let me just go ahead and say I am not a spokesperson for the company. I'm just a driver stating my own views and opinions. So the way I could describe Central is they're pretty much the people you go to or speak with, any issues that you might have. So you have, Central Dispatch, and you have the dispatchers in the terminals. Now, the way I would describe the dispatchers in the terminals, they're pretty much there to hand out the paperwork, because they don't make that many decisions, as far as what we're doing, that's all handled by the people in Columbia, which I kind of prefer that. That way, there's no favoritism. So the way it'll work is, the dispatchers in-house, they'll pretty much submit the lineup, they'll let them know all the drivers that they have. They'll send the freight projection, and then Central will call them or put in the computer what each driver is going to do. So you might have Orlando 901, they'll say Orlando 901 is going to take such and such, and he's going to go here. Dalton 451 is going to take this, Atlanta 400 is going to take this, Memphis 501 is going to do this. So again, they pretty much make those decisions. When it comes to the bids, understand they try to follow the bid sheet, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go where it says on the bid sheet. Let me give you an example. So at my terminal, Orlando, we have a run that goes from, it's a scheduled run. It goes from Orlando to Birmingham. Now on the bid sheet, it says Orlando, then you're gonna go to Valdosta. From Valdosta, you're gonna go to Birmingham. And then on your day to go home, when you leave Birmingham, it says Birmingham to Orlando. Now, just because it says that, it does not mean that you're always gonna follow that, And by the way, if I didn't say in other videos, our 2.5s, you're gonna have a guy that runs opposite. Now, when I say opposite, you have an Orlando driver and you're gonna have a Birmingham driver. So when the Orlando driver is in Birmingham, the Birmingham driver is in Orlando. And then they'll meet up on Friday in Midpoint on Fridays. Now, typically the guy that goes from Orlando to Birmingham, they usually do follow that. It's very rare that they go straight to Birmingham. I don't think they ever do. Now, on the flip side of that, when you leave Birmingham, I'm gonna put it to you like this. Central, the best way to say this is basically Central, you're gonna pretty much do and go wherever Central needs you to go. Once you leave the gate, you belong to Central, Central, they're gonna move you where the freight is. They're gonna send you where the freight is, Sometimes it might be an inconvenience to you, but again, at the end of the day, they have freight to move. So let's say you leave Birmingham. They could send you to the Atlantas, they might send you to West Atlanta, South Atlanta. They could send you to Montgomery. They could send you to Dothan. They could send you to Albany. They could send you to, so the point is, they could send you to any terminal on the way, pretty much. You might hit 3 terminals on the way. Now, again, it is what it is. So people need to understand that you're not always going to follow that bid sheet. The same with the fast turns. When it comes to these fast turns, they could via you on the way to the meet point. For example, you might have a Orlando to Valdosta fast turn run, where you have freight for one of the Atlanta drivers. And let's just say you leave Orlando, you may not have enough freight. They might send you to Ocala, where they might have another Atlanta trailer waiting for you, so they could send you there. Same thing coming back, they could view you on the way back. So let's say you leave Valdosta and you're scheduled to go to Orlando, according to the bid sheet. They could send you to Jacksonville. They could send you to Ocala. They might even send you to Tampa. So the point is they can bounce you around. Also, one thing people need to keep in mind is with these fast turns, let's say the guy you midpoint with breaks down, which it happens. Things happen. And let's just say you have guaranteed freight in one of those trailers. It's a good chance Central's going to call you and tell you, hey, your guy broke down, or whatever the case may be. We need you to go all the way up. Now, there's a few ways this could play out. They might have you drop it, if they have another driver that can move that freight, because I highly doubt that they'll take the chance on freight being late, and then that's where fines and other things come into play. So they might have you go all the way, and I had to learn this the hard way at my last carrier. I had a run back when I was at Cooper where I would go from Tampa to Tallahassee, and I would midpoint with the driver that comes out of Mobile. Well, one night he broke down on the way, and I had guaranteed freight, hot freight, and I got a call from Central say, hey, your guy broke down. We don't have anybody else that's able to move this freight. We're gonna need you to go all the way. Now, mind you, I had just the clothes on my back. I didn't have a bag, I had nothing. So I had to learn the hard way. And from that day on, any midpoint run I had, I always made sure I had a bag just in case. So that's the message for anybody that has a midpoint run. Keep a bag. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Let's talk about how it works when you're wild, okay? So there is no favoritism. They believe in the first in, first out. So if I go to a break bulk, for example, like let's say I go to Valdosta, perfect example. If I'm the first wild driver in, typically I'm gonna be the first one out, and I'll usually get the biggest run out. Now, there's a lot of variables that come into play. Central's gonna look at, okay, what time did this driver get here? Is this driver due to go home, or is this his day to lay out? They also look at, how many hours do you have available to drive? So there's a lot of different factors when it comes to the wild side of things. But, they're pretty fair when it comes to that. So it's not like you have one driver getting all the miles, meanwhile you have other drivers starving for miles. That's one thing I can say, that they're fair. But unlike where I came from, when I was at Cooper, as far as where the wild drivers would go, that was up to the dock supervisor. He pretty much made that decision. So if he liked you, he'd look out for you. If he didn't really care for you, you might find yourself struggling for some miles. But yeah. And I can say, as far as how the dispatchers, they treat us, from my experience, I can't speak for nobody else. I haven't had any real issues. They treat you with respect. Any problems you have, they're there. I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that the calls are recorded. Like, I always wonder how things would be if those calls weren't being recorded. But nonetheless, they're there. They look out for us. And they're pretty good at explaining. Like, sometimes they do things that makes you question. And they always, they give you an explanation. They're not like assholes about it. Like, one time I went from Orlando to Ocala, and I left Orlando with a Dallas pup and an empty. Now, sometimes on rare occasions, they do make mistakes in the dispatching. So I just asked them, like, am I dropping this, or am I pairing this Dallas with another trailer? He said, no, the reason why I had you do that is because we have a Tampa team that left out of Tampa with one Dallas pup and an empty. So I'm basically bringing his other trailer, that way he could take it to Dallas. And yeah, so he pretty much did a good job of explaining that. When it comes to like working extra, they're pretty fair about that. And overall, I really have, no complaints. Now, sometimes they have, screwed me over with miles, things happen, but from my experience, they always make up for it the following day. So like, for example, there's been a few times where I've ran under 400 miles for the night, but typically the very next dispatch, or the next day, I'll usually hit the high mid-5s, sometimes low 6s as far as miles go. So like I said, they're pretty fair. But I'm coming up to, I think, 10 minutes. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. So as I always tell y'all, thank you to all my day one subscribers. Thank you to all my new subscribers. Appreciate all of y'all. And as I always tell y'all, y'all take it easy. Y'all stay safe.